What's up, guys? This is Crazy here with the Hansem reports, and I'm here today with Bernie. Bernie, how you doing?
I
What's up? So we are doing episode 5. We're going to be talking about Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep. Bernie, what happens in Birth by Sleep?
Jesus fuck.
Putting you on the spot every time, man. You got to see it coming.
It's a game of cat and mouse started by an old man. That's pretty much it.
Yo, I like this, Bernie. You're cutting these down to the required 120 characters.
Because it's so much easier with these side games than it is for the main games.
Right. They're a lot more straightforward stories, which is a good and also sometimes not great thing, right? Because they're not really as good as stories. But then, I mean, I'm just thinking about Dream Drop, because that's kind of the exception where they kind of just they wanted to make it not so straightforward.
We've been leading up to Dream Drop for the past 4 episodes. But we'll get to that when you get to it. But no, I don't know if it's that they're more straightforward or just that they're shorter. Sure. And they don't, like, the job of a side game in Kingdom Hearts logic, the job of a side game is to make another loose end, not to tie them up, you know?
I feel that, yeah.
So it's kind of like, it's a hell of a lot easier making a mess than it is cleaning it up.
Very true. Very, very true. So I guess let's just jump right into it, right? Let's talk about the story of Birth by Sleep. And pretty much this is the first and really only game that in the series that you get to play an entire like story as 3 different characters. So they essentially tell the same story, but 3 times in a row, but from 3 different points of view. So it's a lot of going back and forth between the Disney worlds, but you'll see it as Ventus got here first or Terra got here first, and then normally Aqua's the last person to she's normally the cleanup crew, right? And finding out all the mess. But the interesting thing with this game is that it doesn't necessarily you don't get to play all 3 of them at around the same time, or you can, I guess, right? But for most people like myself, you would play as one character, and then once you finish their story, play as the next character and then the next one, which I feel like is actually not a great way to do it. If I'm being honest, at least story wise.
Personally speaking, I like the fact of having that mystery, and then or not necessarily the mystery, but of having those holes in the story and then filling them out through different perspectives.
Right.
But I will say that in this case, looking back at it, it could have been done better.
Yeah. I think for me, like, I like that idea. It's just more so if they had naturally, like, if it was, say, you only played one story instead of it like, oh, you pick and choose who you want to play as. If it was a bit more scripted between like, oh, you will always play as Aqua first in this world or whatever, right? And then this one, I feel like they could have played more into that of like, oh, we're intentionally giving you this information now, and then you'll get it. Because like, I feel like a lot of that gets thrown out the window when you play as a certain character first, right? Like, I played as Terra first, so then by the time I played as Aqua, which was like the second one, then I was like, oh, well, I already know what happened in most of these worlds, for like the most part. Whereas like if you play as Aqua first, a lot of times, then it does add that mystery. It adds a layer to it.
It's funny. Thinking of it, it's kind of the same thing. Going away from Kingdom Hearts for a little bit, we've talked about the most recent Fire Emblem 3 Houses, a bit. And I've told you how I loved my first playthrough, but the second playthrough, when I picked a different storyline, I wasn't as invested because I already knew what happened because of the playthrough. And I feel like that's exactly the case here.
Yeah. And then there's also just having to remember what happened, right?
Oh, that's true.
Because if say you play through one character the entire way and it takes you, I don't know, 12 hours or so, then by the time you get to the next character and you're playing at the beginning of the game, you kind of are like, wait, what exact, like, you know, you remember the general idea of what happens in the story, but like the specifics of like, oh, like, what did Ventus do in Olympus Coliseum? It's like, I don't remember, right? Like,
yeah. Like, there are arguments for both ways of doing it, because, like, you know, if it was done the other way, where you play them all at around the same time, like you're forced to play as Terra, then as Ven, then as Aqua, I can see how there can be trouble there with, like, oh, well, what if I want to keep playing as Terra, or, you know,
right.
Just the difference of going from someone who hits as hard as Terra to Ventus, who hits about as hard as a feather duster, you know,
right.
it can be kind of jarring.
No, it's a point to be made, because, and then bringing up Dream Drop again, but with that, then you're kind of just forced to switch back and forth between them, and then that's also just another problem on its own. So at least it's like you said, with this, being able to control it is definitely the better option when you're gonna have multiple protagonists that you get to control, like, throughout one story. One thing though I do think that they do a good job with that is just the fact that, because you're essentially playing the same story or a very similar story with all three of these characters that have different personalities and stuff, seeing similar events happen through their eyes is pretty interesting, because you get a different perspective each time. So, like, it's just the idea of I guess, yeah, just each person handling a similar situation in a different way is fascinating to me.
It's also great seeing, like, when you get to Radiant Gardens, that's when all three characters meet up since tutorial mission. And it's great how I played the first time I played as Terra, right? So up until that point, I've been seeing, like, all the doubts that he's been having, both in himself, in Ericus, and in his friends, up till that point. So by the time he sees his friends and he's like, what the fuck do you guys want now?
Right.
I understand that. But then when you play as Ventus and you go through the same thing, Ventus is just trying to catch up to Terra and seeing, like, and constantly seeing what he's done in the world and being like, Terra wouldn't do that. Terra's a good guy. Da, 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 da. And then for him to be shown that side of Terra, it's like, well, if I hadn't played as Terra, I'd be like, well, what the fuck? Is this guy really a good guy? He's being kind of a dick, you know?
Exactly.
So they do a good job of that, of really showing how one story can be seen completely different based on perspective.
Exactly. Yeah. That I can definitely get behind when you look at it from that perspective. And in general with this story, right? So this is basically what the secret ending of KH2 was, right? So, right, like, before that we had 358, and we knew that wasn't really going to be anything, but then this was the first game where we're like, okay, well, this is gonna give us, like, something completely different, right? That we had never really seen before, because these are now, like, this is actually, now I'm thinking about, it's the first one where you're not playing as Sora or Riku or anyone like that. But
it's an entirely different cast,
right? So then you get more insight into the history of like the Keyblade War and, like, the Keyblade Graveyard.
This is the first time that the Keyblade War was mentioned, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
It's also, I remember the first time that I saw the secret ending, me, along with the rest of the internet, was like, is this going to be Kingdom Hearts 3? And that's where that whole thing started.
Exactly.
But it is true. Like, one of the reasons personally that I was excited to play as all three of them, and I didn't mind at the time, I didn't mind playing the same story 3 different times, is because that was at a point where, for the most part, the story of Kingdom Hearts wasn't as convoluted as what it was gonna be, you know?
No, yeah, it was still pretty neatly tied because the last thing we really knew was from KH2.
So for me, this was like, wow, this is an entire side of the story that hasn't really been explored. I want to learn as much as I can and see, like, you know, how does Aqua being with Cinderella at this time affect, like, how Cinderella got to Hollow Bastion in Kingdom Hearts 1. You know what I mean?
Sure, yeah. Yeah,
So
I would say that's a small thing that I did like too, like things like that. The bigger one would probably be like Olympus with Hercules, and then even with Peter Pan as well, because that is one of those things where you're like, okay, like this brings the story a bit closer together. And then I guess technically Stitch as well, but like Stitch doesn't say anything in KH2, so. But it is just another thing where it's like, okay, these are characters in the same universe, right?
And not just with the Disney characters too. We also got to see the original somebodies of a lot of the organization. Not, I want to say more than half of them.
Yeah, basically all the Hollow Bastion people, or Radiant Garden, which that's like a whole nother thing that I'm not like crazy about. To be honest, like it's one of those things. It's just more so like it's not very creative. Like I don't know, like just to basically be able to be like, yeah, like 7 of the organization members all came from essentially the same place, and like 5 of them all just worked for Hansem. Like I don't know, or more so, one thing is like they worked for him, but then the other is like that they just, you get some people like Zaldin and Lexaeus who just did nothing, as far as we know, right? They just were bodyguards, but like even Zigbar at least was a guard, right? But at least they gave him some screen time to do something.
Zigbar actually had a role in everything, and
sorry, say that again, Bernie. It cut out a little.
Sorry, Zigbar actually had a role in the story,
right?
But you know, again, like at the time when like looking back at it, I feel like I was led with a fucking like a carrot on a fishing stick in front of me.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I was just so excited to learn more about, like, oh, what the hell is going on with the story? Where is Kingdom Hearts 3 gonna go? You know?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, any little bit of information was amazing. You know, it was a treasure trove.
Exactly.
But then, you know, as time went on and as the story got messier, looking back at it, it's like, well, none of that was really important then, was it?
Yeah. That's how it is. But I guess let's talk about Xehanort, Sir Wigglefingers himself.
Yes, this is the first time we see the original Wigglefingers.
Yep. And we're not tricked into thinking that it's not actually him, and it's really just some guy pretending to be him, or it's
Hansem.
Yeah. Yeah, but no, Hansem.
Yes.
But yeah, no, the real Xehanort. I was about to call him Wigglefingers again. But yeah, which him, like, I think they do actually a really good job with him in this story.
They do. I love Xehanort in Birth by Sleep.
Yeah. Obviously, like, the voice is incredible. Leonard Nimoy did an amazing job, and yeah, then just like the actual, like, I can buy into his actions, and I can see what he's doing, and he's actually like a smart guy. Like, especially when you see like the way he manipulates Terra, and that's just like another side thing, I guess, that like just comparing, like, Terra's like the equivalent in a sense of Riku, right? But I feel like Terra gets a bad rap, right? Where a lot of people like give Terra more hate than he should, but at the same time, when you look at like his scenario compared to Riku, like in KH1, like Terra was being manipulated pretty hard. Like I could see how he jumps to the conclusions that he does. Whereas with Riku, a lot of times I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, this is like the biggest example for me is always the in KH1 with Maleficent, where Maleficent's like, oh well, like Sora made new friends, so he doesn't like you. And then Riku's like, man, you right, that's a good point. And then he just like accepts it, and then it's just like, well, I'm just gonna go further into darkness, right? Whereas like with Terra, there's not like a lot of those moments. It's just genuine like things where he's like, oh well, like yeah, like if you want to do this, then you gotta just like go over here and do this. Like I don't know, like it was a lot more real, I guess.
Yeah, the main thing that Xehanort manipulated Terra with was his own, like, I could say shortcomings, his
Right.
own feelings of inadequacy, basically, because it all like everyone was happy and fine up until the Mark of Mastery exam.
Right.
You know that Xehanort interfered with, and after that exam, Aqua became a master. Terra did not. And that's when Xehanort came up to him and said, like, hey, it's fine if you're not a master. Ericus is just afraid of the dark. But darkness isn't evil, it's just a power that people use.
Yeah.
And there's truth to that, because Riku can use darkness, and he's the what's it called? A protagonist is when there's one protagonist. What's it called when there's two?
I mean, there can be multiple protagonists, I think.
No, there's a word for it. I think it's deuteragonist.
Oof, maybe.
It's a big word, but basically, like, we follow Riku almost as much as we do Sora throughout Kingdom Hearts, is what I'm saying.
Sure.
You know what yeah. So we know, like, we as an audience know, like, oh, darkness doesn't always mean evil.
Right.
So Terra can buy into that, especially because it's a Keyblade Master. His Keyblade Master's friend. So it's like, oh well, you know, if my teacher trusts you, then that means you're trustworthy. So he's gonna take his word for it.
Right. Yeah, and I always get like this feeling of like it's kind of like the Emperor in Star Wars, right? Where like he has like one line in Episode 3 where he says something along the lines of like, oh, like if you want to like know all about the Force, right? You got to look at all of its aspect, not just like one narrow dogmatic view, right? And it's kind of like the same thing here, where he's just like, no, like there's like darkness isn't innately bad, I guess, but it's just like it's what you do with it.
You know, comparing the Emperor and Xehanort, I think that's a good comparison there.
Yeah, they're both master manipulators.
Yeah,
and they both have like ridiculous plans that take them like decades to fulfill. But
yep. But yeah, I agree with you. I think people give Terra, like, they give him too much shit for that.
Yeah, 100%.
But speaking of the Mark of Mastery, this is the first time that we really learn about the Mark of Mastery and how
the Mark of Mastery.
That hero was simple, okay?
That's just what I say, man.
Hit some orbs and fight each other.
It's just, oh yeah, and then that's just dumb. Like, one thing is they introduced the idea of like a master, and I'm like, okay, well, fine, I guess, right? Like, it's kind of like comparing to Star Wars again. It's like the idea of like in the original, it's just there's just Jedi. There was no Jedi Master or whatever. But then it's like similar to this, where it's like, okay, well, it would make sense in a more organized, I guess, system where they have Keyblade Masters teaching their apprentices, right? Like, it would make sense they would have some kind of like test and stuff for them to their Mark of Mastery, right? So with that, I'm okay with. But then it's like, make it something interesting, right? Like, what? Like, and then the bizarre thing is that's what it is in this game. But then Mark of Mastery in Dream Drop is like, you gotta do this convoluted thing to like it's either the most simple Mark of Mastery exam or it's the most complex thing, right? It's either you have to just hit some orbs or you have to like go into a dream and like find the meaning of life. I don't know. Like,
I was gonna say, the funniest thing is that the original Mark of Mastery the first Mark of Mastery that we saw is just hit some orbs and beat the shit out of each other.
like,
but then Master Jensen is like, we're gonna do a Mark of Mastery test. and you have a job to do. You gotta wake up all these sleeping worlds. I'm like, well, that's not an exam at that point. That's a whole ass fucking quest.
I think at that point he was just trying to get them to do his laundry list. He was like, "Man, I forgot about these sleeping worlds. These guys need help, but you know what? I don't have the time or resources to do it. I'm just too lazy. I can't leave my tower." Like,
speaking of forgetting,
oh no,
can we appreciate the fact that Mickey was along?
Oh my god,
for at least I want to say at least a third of the whole adventure.
Right.
The important third, where he actually fought against Xehanort with these three.
Yep.
And then in Recoded, which we'll get to next week, but I'll just mention this right quick. Sure. In Recoded, when people start mentioning like, oh, the 3 lost Keyblade wielders, Mickey's like, oh yeah, I forgot about them. Completely forgot their existence.
Yo, Mickey's a douche. Like this game is the beginning of Mickey just being a douche to everyone. Like
this game is the beginning of the entire story unraveling. But I love it. Like this game has on and off been my favorite Kingdom Hearts throughout the years.
I could see that. Like it provides me with more joy than it should. Like it
does. But again, it's like at the time it fit in perfectly with how everything was going.
Right.
Before Nomura lost his mind. I guarantee you that guy's lost his mind by now. Yeah. Like 18 Final Fantasies, fucking 10 Kingdom Hearts later, he's
like 4 or 3 of those Final Fantasies are all the same game anyways.
Exactly. But anyway. Fucking Mickey forgetting just everything that happened is just.
Speaking of what happened, right? So this game, right? Obviously you get like all these plot holes and stuff like that, but the way this story ends, right? So like just to touch on that a bit, this is like one where everybody, it's similar to Dream Drop, right? Where it kind of has this sad ending for everybody, right? And I also appreciate that. And obviously, like it's in a really macro level, you'll be like, oh well, like it's done because it's a prequel, right? And like they have to like restore the continuity, right? When that mattered. But like, on top of that, it's just fitting for the story, right? Because you see like all these characters on the paths they're going on. You're like, well, this is like, if they don't get their stuff together and actually team up at some point, or if they do it too late, then it's like it's gonna be the end of them. And it was basically, right? And even like the strongest one of them, with being Aqua, like even her, she technically, I guess, like survives in a sense, right? But not really, right?
You know what I mean?
Sorry, what'd you say?
She survives, but she still loses.
Oh, okay, yeah. No, yeah, it cut out. Sorry about that, Bernie.
I don't know what's going on there. Well, there's a storm outside right now. That could be bothering us.
Yeah, hopefully that's not too much of an issue. But,
every time that we mention continuity in Kingdom Hearts, I just cannot think of anything other than Mickey being shirtless.
That's the other Birth by Sleep, Bernie.
The other Birth by Sleep. That was did that like 8 years ago, but only came out anyway.
Exactly.
But I do get what you're saying. Like it is very. It's one of those things where it's like, yeah, it sucks, but it's necessary.
Yeah, and I think it's just fitting for the story that they present to us, and I appreciate it for what it is, and then it does set up very well, I think, for in later games, especially obviously like KH3, where there's this big idea of, oh, we need to wake these guys up, right? And it gives context to Birth by Sleep, right? So in that case, I do appreciate it, and I think in general this game does a pretty good job of laying the groundwork for the other games in that sense, right? Like what Xehanort's really after, like what's his what's his end game, right? And then it gives more context and understanding to like, okay, well, like this is why he hasn't been like around for a while.
it's really interesting how Xehanort's motives were basically him wanting to know more about Kingdom Hearts.
Right.
Kind of like how Ansem wanted to know more about hearts in general.
Mhm.
And you can kind of see like how if Ansem wasn't stopped, he could have easily just been another Xehanort.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's always a interesting idea. I think that in storytelling is just how you have these two guys who are on similar paths, but it's just those like minute differences that that deter them from one way to the other, like on extremes, right? Where then like with Xehanort, he just dedicates the rest of his life to finding Kingdom Hearts and basically gaining power and getting the X Blade. I'll just call it the X Blade to that way it's not confusing. Which we'll get to the X Blade in a second, but because I know that that's something that we're passionate about. So, but what's it called? But then with Ansem the Wise, it's he recognizes mistakes and he then makes an effort to try to reconcile, right, and do something good with all the research that he's done over the years.
Mm-hmm.
So the X Blade.
Oh, God fucking okay. The first time that I saw it, me being, I don't know, how old was I? I was like 15 or 16 or something. The first time I saw it, I was like, that's a really cool thing. But then, when I looked at it again, I was like, okay, the concept of it is cool. The concept that you have to do something in order for the real Kingdom Hearts to appear is cool.
Mm-hmm.
Why the hell does it look so stupid?
Oh, but the first time I saw it, I remember I just saw it like in an image, like on the internet, and I was like, what the, like, all I could think of was like, it was some kind of like very badly made like fan art or something, or like it was like what, like something that was just edited together, right? Because it has pieces of the Kingdom Key. So there's a part of me that was just like, man, they probably just like photoshopped that with like with an Ultima weapon from like KH1 and then just changed the colors or something. Like, this looks insane. Like, why would they do that? Like that can't be real. And then of course it was very, very much real, which I mean,
also it was never needed again in
true
Kingdom Hearts 3.
Which, thank God, I don't want to see that Keyblade again.
They mentioned that,
like I don't care if I hope that even if that's the actual reason, they were just like, no, this is like, everybody hates this Keyblade. We have to find a reason for us to not use it again. Like, I'm glad. Like, what? I don't need that. I don't need to see that thing in the Unreal Engine 4.
Like with Lee and how he went back to being Axel.
You know what? We'll get there when we get there.
Yeah.
So I guess in general with this game, right? This I'm just looking at our notes. One of the things that we have here is Disney worlds matter even less, and I feel like that's just like a growing theme with the side games, right? Where it's just this constant. There are moments in like the main games where you're like, okay, like does the them going to all these worlds actually matter? But then there's others where like, okay, like especially KH2, you're like, okay, this ties into the story. But then a lot of these side games, especially this one, you're just like, okay, like they're just literally going to these Disney worlds just to play the game of cat and mouse and just have you do something for a while. It feels like, because then you get worlds like our good old, I guess it's not even, what is it called in this game? It's not Disney Castle, but the Disney Town. Yeah. Which is,
you need 2 adults.
There it is. One of the greatest. This is legitimately one of our favorite lines in all of Kingdom Hearts. Which reminds me, this game also has one of the greatest, just awkward scenes in the entire game, which is Terra in Olympus Coliseum, like winning a match, and then the crowd screaming and chanting for him, and then they'd show the crowd is just empty, Like there's just nobody in the stands. I'm like, really?
Yep. Like I remember in Days, I always thought like the main reason that we never see anyone in the Disney worlds is because Sayak said these are supposed to be covert missions. Don't announce yourself to the world that you're there, you know?
Right.
So that made sense. But in this case, it's literally just, oh, I have to find Terra. Who's that over there? And that's it.
Yeah.
All you'll hear is just Terra finding Snow White. My name's Snow White. Ventus finding Snow White. My name's Snow White, and I saw some guy you may be looking for over there. Aqua finding Snow White. She's asleep. She can't give me information. I'm out.
Right. I think that's one of the main things, like when you look at like say KH1 compared to this with the Disney worlds, where in KH1 one thing that I did appreciate is because, and I get why they can't do it in Birth by Sleep, but the idea that like the Keyblade wielder has like a job to do, right? Like it's, oh well, his Sora's job in that game is at the end like to lock all the keyholes to all the worlds, right? So they don't fall to darkness. So there's like there's more of a reason for him to basically talk to all the people, the inhabitants of the world, right? So that way then you can get more information to doing that. But obviously at that the thing that makes it more interesting is the fact that since he's all new to this, he doesn't really care. He just kind of just wants to find his friends. Where in this case it's just, I want to find my friends, but then there's no actual like external like, oh, like you probably should be helping these guys out for this reason. It's just like, oh well, I just happen to be here, so I guess fine, I'll help you guys, whatever. Which can work, but I feel like it just comes across more often than not as just like, it's a lot more hollow, I guess.
Yeah, I think a big reason behind that is the fact that like Terra and Ventus are following their own motives while going through all these worlds, and while they're there, it's like, oh, these people are in trouble. I might as well help. But Aqua's the only one who had the mission to get rid of the unversed.
That's true. Yeah, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, because Ericus told Aqua after he spoke to Yen Sid, he told Aqua saying, "Hey, there are these weird little shits running around there, so I need you to find Terra and deal with that problem. Because that's what Keyblade wielders do. They maintain order in the worlds, and this is stirring the pot, so I need you to make it stop." But Ventus just wanted to find Terra, and Terra just wanted to be a Keyblade master. He just wanted his dad to love him.
And then he tries to kill him, but you know, that's neither here nor there.
No one dies in Kingdom Hearts.
And once again, that's another thing too, that it goes back to what Terra's not as dumb as people think he is. He had very good reason to fight Ericus, right?
Yeah.
Because from his point of view, Ericus is losing his mind, right?
Yeah, Ericus is about to kill Ventus.
Yeah. like what? Like that's your logical solution? Like Grandmaster? Like really? Like no, of course, yeah, you would then defend Ventus.
Yeah, because Ericus knew that Ventus was all light because Xehanort, I don't know how he did it, but he sucked all the darkness out of Van and made it Vanitas.
Right.
Ericus knew that. By the way, really quick, Ericus is like the most forgiving best friend in the entire world. Like, he knows that Xehanort is doing all these things. Like, not exactly, like, he doesn't know that he's, that he's manipulating Terra or that he's stirring shit up everywhere, but he knows that he knows
he's not good up to any good.
Exactly. He knows he's not up to any good, and he knows that he's been becoming obsessive with his research into Kingdom Hearts and Darkness. And they even fought. I remember there's one of Xehanort's journals that says that him and Ericus fought, and that's why he isn't in the Land of Departure. Like,
Hmm.
If I remember correctly, they fought when they were still relatively young,
Right.
and then they didn't see each other until Xehanort brought Ericus Ventus.
Interesting. Okay, gotcha.
I but
You know, I think that's BS. I think theory.
I
I think that their fight was he got his ass kicked at chess, and ever since then he's been wanting to challenge him again to another game. So that's why he just lets things just like slip on by. He's like, you know what? I'll just let it slip on by because we got this match coming up. So that's my theory.
anyway.
I was trying to just like see if I could how much I could come up with that.
You did your best.
It was
You did your best. I appreciate it. But we can agree that Ericus just refuses to ever blame Xehanort.
Yeah.
Or even question him, even though
it's ridiculous.
Yeah, like he could easily just be like, "Oh, Xehanort wants to use Ventus. All right, you're under house arrest now." You know?
Yeah.
Like, if he wants you to fight Ventus, well then Ventus is gonna have to come here,
right?
And he's gonna have to fight through me and Terra. Because who gives a fuck if Ventus fights us? You know?
Exactly.
But no, I have to kill you. Why? I can't say.
Oh man, Ericus. What a guy.
He's at least he saw the error of his ways, I think. And then he died, but he didn't die, but yeah.
Yeah. So with Ventus too, right? Like I actually think he's a pretty cool character. Like the overall concept of him, and then just like especially the design. Like I'm a fan. Like it's like a mix of a lot of things. Like it's obviously there's like Sora's face, and then you get like the same kind of, I don't even know if to call it armor, but just like the overall like muscle suit that's like similar to Riku's in KH1.
Really quick, is that armor?
That's what I'm saying. I don't know. It seems like it's just clothes.
Yeah, but like from the first time we see Ventus be born from Ventus's darkness, he's already wearing that. So I'm like,
I like to think it's his actual skin.
Yeah, I think it's just his. He just doesn't have any skin.
He's just naked the whole time. Or
yeah,
not naked. He's got the skirt or whatever.
Yeah, and like, because he didn't have a face. He himself said that Sora's face, or he didn't have a face for a while until it gradually changed into Sora's.
Right. Speaking of which, I'd love his helmet. Like it reminds me of something I would see out of like out of Halo, like one of the like helmets that you could like customize.
Mm-hmm.
I think was it like the operator was? I think operator one was like similar to it, like in Halo 4.
It looks like the EVA helmet to me because it's like it's a giant fishbowl, you know.
Right. Yeah.
But on that note, I really liked the armor that they introduced in this game.
Like for the heroes?
For the heroes, and well, did we see any? Yeah, we saw Ericus's armor. We saw Xehanort's armor.
Got that no heart.
No heart. And we saw Ventus's helmet.
Yeah. No, yeah. Overall, I think they do a real good design. 100% though, Lingering Will, Terra's is the best.
Yep.
I don't even think it's close.
It's funny how really Terra and Aqua's are the main of the main characters. Mm-hmm. Terra and Aqua are the only different ones because Ventus's just looks like a smaller Terra's.
Right.
And then
that's why it's like so hard to put Ventus's like in the conversation because it's just always like you're just gonna immediately compare to Terra's and then Terra's is just better. Like
yeah. That was but that was kind of their dynamic, how he was the older brother and Ventus just wanted him to love him. Didn't care how, he just looked up at him.
That's true, yeah.
Oh, really quick, you know what else? I remember when I first saw this, it was completely by accident too. The emblem that they all have, the heart emblem.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when I first found out, it was because I had my PSP kind of to the side, and I looked at it, and I'm like, it kind of looks like a nobody. Oh my god! And then I turned it completely over, and I'm like, oh my god, it's a nobody emblem, but upside down.
Yep. Yeah. One of the clever little things they do. Since we're on Ventus, I don't really care for Ventus. Like, I don't know. Is that just me? Like, Ventus is kind of just a boring guy. Like, I
feel like the reason that you think that is because he's basically a discount Sora with Roxas's face.
But like, super discount Sora. Like, that's like below great value brand, man.
So not even like Kirkland Sora, but like Dollar Tree Sora.
Nah, Kirkland's good value, man. Like, that's.
You know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying. But no, yeah, like the thing with Ventus is like, even, and we'll get into gameplay. Like gameplay, like I enjoy his the least, but like overall with the story, right? With him, it's just he kind of just doesn't do anything like he's not every single like one of his actions is just like, oh, I'll just like I can't even remember. It's just basically like I don't know, it's not even interesting.
You're gonna have to give me a bit more detail on that.
Like
how the entire time he's just chasing Terra and that's it, and he just happens to stumble upon situations and he's like, I guess I'll help.
Okay, so like he's chasing Terra, right? And every single time he does it, it doesn't feel like he ever learns from anything, right? Like where he starts, like it'd be interesting if it was like the whole point of him is he's really dependent on, like it's kind of highlighted with the, I need two adults, right? Like he's very dependent on Aqua and Terra, and then especially Terra. But it would be nice if there was some kind of growth between that and the end of the game where it was like, oh no, like I've become more of my own person or something. Like I've accepted that. Like if they played more into like the insecurity of like him trying to be more like Terra, but I don't really get any of that. He's just kind of there.
The main thing with Ben is that the entire time he's really just a pawn. Like.
And yeah, I think that's at its core what I just don't find interesting about him. Like he's just kind of there to be the third guy on the team and to take like the fall.
Yeah, exactly. He's there just to be the emotional loss to Terra and Aqua. You know what I mean?
It's just a plot device, and it's like, and it's a shame because it's like it's a person, right? Like you can use a person as a plot device, but like make me care about them even more. That way, when they do lose them, like I actually care. But
it's really funny how you also see his dependency on Terra and Aqua, not just in his story, but in both of their stories as well. Because every time they see Ven and something happens, they're always like, "I'll deal with this, Ven. You stay here."
Yeah. And that's true though. They enable it in that sense, right?
I don't know if they enable it or if it's just the fact that they see him. They don't see him
as an equal.
Yeah, they don't see him as another apprentice. They see him as a kid that they have to protect.
Right.
Kind of like their helicopter parents. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And even when Terra starts becoming angsty, he's like, I have to go. Ven, stay here.
Yeah.
So I agree. It is kind of a shame because there is, with the amount of times that they're like, Ven, stay here. Ven, you can't deal with this. Ven, don't do this. The amount of times that happens, there had to have been at least one point where, and there kind of was, but it was all the way at the end of the game where he's fighting Vanitas inside his broken heart, where he says like, "Oh, this time I'll protect them."
Right.
But I don't think I agree. Like there should have been more to it.
Yeah,
than
like
just,
it would have been nice if he had a moment similar to that earlier, but then like maybe he fails or something, right? And then he has to
or not
like
even just
learn from that, or like some kind of just sign that like he was like, I'm getting fed up with this. Like I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like not even just that. Maybe just like one scene where he confronts like Terra and Aqua and just be like, "I want to help you guys too."
Yeah.
And you even now that I'm thinking about it, you even see it in the original secret ending, because the entire thing starts where Terra puts his hand on Ventus's shoulder and shoves him back before he starts running up.
Right.
And you know, at first, without seeing their faces, it kind of seems like a "I got this" or like "stay out of this" kind of thing. But now that we know about them and their relationship, we know it's him trying to keep Ven out of trouble.
Right.
Amazing.
Yeah, with that, there's a lot more context to it.
Yeah. Also, fun fact: did you know that they wanted to, every time that the characters showed up in their armor in the game, they wanted to include the long ass capes that they had in the trailer, or not in the trailer.
What they couldn't do it on the PSP, or
They couldn't do it on the PSP. It completely, like they would get negative 50 frames every
Nice.
time they tried to animate it. This was before Arkham Knight's.
I was about to say this game came out before that, but that game was insane. They had like 250 or something like that animations for the cape.
What was it again? Like there was more data in the cape than the Batmobile in Arkham Asylum.
I wouldn't be surprised.
And then, you know, the Batmobile.
Wait, you mean Arkham Knight? Or
No, the Batmobile in Arkham Asylum was smaller.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, I get what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. It's really funny, going off topic really quick, it's really funny how people measure these kinds of things in comparison to each other, you know?
Yeah.
Like, oh, the Batmobile in Arkham Knight is bigger than the entire game of Arkham Asylum. Or, Fallout 76, the map is 4 times the size of Fallout 4.
Right.
Or Skyrim is the size of Manhattan. And it's like, these are wonderful like comparisons, but if you were to show them to someone out of context, you'd just be like, what does that mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Honestly, that meme I saw where it's like, Americans dig a hole for new construction. It's the size of 4 million empty yogurt cans. And I'm like, Yoplait? Like, Gogurt? What yogurt can? And anyway, back on topic. Where did we leave off?
I don't know anymore, man. Let's just go to gameplay.
See, this is one thing about Burst by Sleep where it's like you're trying, like, the way that the story is, there's only so many interesting things that happen that in the middle in the middle
yogurt, man.
It's just hard to tie into all of this. Go to gameplay.
Gameplay. Yeah, every game's got it, right? So
maybe this is how Domora lost his mind.
Probably. Yeah.
Go on.
So, gameplay. Biggest thing about this game, right? So you have command deck, right? Introduction of shot locks, D-links, as well as floaty fucking combat, which is just the beginning of a terrible time in my opinion.
It's the beginning of the bane of your existence.
Yeah. So I guess starting with command deck, right? Command deck is a pretty interesting tool. My only main problem with it is at least the way it's balanced in this game, right? Is it becomes spammy, right? Where it becomes like every single player will then, just for testing out, will find the certain abilities that work, and then they'll just stick with that, and then that's just the solution to everything. And in a sense, yeah, we all lean towards a certain game style, but when it becomes, oh, just farm all Thunder Surges and Kiragas to solve all your problems and then just dodge roll and you'll just be fine, then it just becomes really uninteresting gameplay to me, like combat wise. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I agree. It's a cool idea, but the way that it was implemented here is it definitely didn't let it shine as much as I think they wanted it to. Because a big part of it was like, oh, experiment with the different combinations and the different abilities you can use, and you can use them whenever you want.
Right.
But because there existed things like Thunder Surge, like the magic mines that just completely overpowered everything else, it's like, why would I use anything else?
Mm-hmm. Exactly, right? Like there's no like cons to it, and they just all recharge. So it's not even like in other games where it's like, oh, like maybe this limit's really good, but then it's like, well, I got to use all my MP for it. Where in this case, it's just like, oh, you can just get a bunch of them, right? And then by the time you scroll back to the next one, it's already fully recharged. Which, yeah, it just, I think it's not as robust as it could have been, because it's not a bad idea. But I think besides that too, the only thing that like also kind of annoys me is like the actual system in which you get that stuff, right? Where it's like you have to kind of just grind for all these different items and then just essentially synthesize them together and then find out what you get out of it. And then not only that, but then how abilities are directly tied to these different things that you make for, I forgot what it's called, but basically like whatever you make for your command deck.
I think they were just called commands.
Yeah. So yeah. So for whatever commands you make, then you get like abilities out of them. So then it kind of defeats the purpose of like leveling up and stuff. So it's weird. Like the point is, it's weird then when it's like you could technically be level 1 and then still have abilities such as like once more and second chance and leaf bracer. I don't know, but
one thing
it's just very different from what they traditionally do.
Yeah. But one thing I don't like about that kind of thing where an ability is tied to a command, or like in Dream Drop where an ability is tied to a Dream Eater.
Right.
It's that it kind of defeats the purpose of grinding with that ability or with that Dream Eater. Because if you're doing it just to get the skill, well, I got the skill permanently now. Fuck whatever this thing is.
Exactly.
I'll just
you
put
move on to the next one.
Yeah, and it's like, well, what was the point of me having it that long if I'm not gonna use it ever again?
Yep. Yeah, I'm never a fan of that when they do that in games, because of that reason. Because then you just it's just basically, oh well, I played with this toy and now I'm just gonna go to the next one. You don't like ever like appreciate it for what it is.
The Toy Story meme. The
I'm not
I don't
play
want
with you anymore.
Yep.
So shot locks, I think are actually pretty cool. I think as once again, it's one of those things that as long as they're not abused, but at least the way it's implemented, I'm okay with, because it's one of those things. It's similar to Drive, right, where you have to save it up and then you can you're using something that will essentially be free damage, but it's coming at the cost of you using the what is that bar called? Just the drive, basically, like it's basically the drive bar.
Yeah, I forgot what it was called, but it's basically the drive bar. Was it called Focus? I think it may have been called Focus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't do that much research, but
I like shot locks. I never use them as much as I should, but I did like the variety of them, you know, and how you could level them up as well.
Right.
And then there was that whole I don't know. I don't know what the word for it is, but how like different shot locks had you have like, oh, mash X as fast as you can, or press these buttons in a certain tempo to do more damage. That was different, at least, you know.
Yeah,
That way, it wasn't like, oh, this shot lock
it wasn't
functions
just free damage.
exactly like,
Like you still
and
had to have
it,
some kind of skill for each one.
and it made them kind of distinct from each other, you know. Like it wasn't just, oh, this one is better than the first one, and then this one is better than that. No, it's I like this one better because I just like mashing the X button, or I'm really good at timing this one, so on and so forth.
Hmm. Yeah.
I also like how each of the three characters had some unique shot locks.
That too. That too. Even
Like,
just in general, their command styles. I also think that was one of the things that makes it each character unique with unlocking those and changing up their fighting style or just enhancing their fighting style.
I was a fan of command styles. I liked them a lot. Uh, especially the unique ones, like how Terra. I remember the first one that Terra gets is just it's entirely based off of Earth, and he just starts beating the shit out of people with rocks and seismic slams.
Right.
And as you progress, and as they evolve, he eventually gets the oh, what was it? I can't remember what it was called, but it's the one where he basically gets the dark arms that he starts clawing at people with.
Mm, yeah, I can't remember what I know what you're talking about, but I can't remember what it's called.
Yeah, and then with Ventus, how he went from having like this really basic, like, oh, I just attack faster, to I have 7 floating swords behind me, and all of my finishers end in a tornado.
Right.
And Aqua with Spellweaver, which had like crazy AoE damage and magic damage.
Mm-hmm.
And it was cool how you had to actually level those up in order to make them more useful, and sometimes even unlock another a command style on top of it.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I really appreciated with like it's just kind of highlights more so the uniqueness to each character, right? Because in general they all played very differently, right? Like where Terra's more about just like heavy attacks and Ventus is more about speed and Aqua's more about magic, but I feel like the command styles really bring that home for each character.
Yeah, yeah, especially early on, where like, because at level 1 there's not that much difference in their stats,
Mm-hmm.
but once you hit Spellweaver for the first time, or when you use Terra's command style for the first time, that's where you start seeing like, oh, that's right, I forgot. These guys have their own their specialties. They're not just a different skin on the same character.
Yeah, and I think that would have been definitely one of the biggest mistakes they could have made with
Oh yeah.
with these characters. I'm glad that they made a point about that, where each one does feel very different from each other.
Also, they stuck with the naming game with these three and the original Destiny Island 3. How I think I told you about that, right? How Sora's name in Japanese means sky,
Mhm.
Kyrie's means ocean or sea, and Riku's means, I can't remember if it means earth or land. And then you come over here, and then we have Aqua, water, Terra, earth, and Ventus, wind.
Yeah, that reminds me. I remember at one point in the game, when Terra meets Hades, and he's like, "Oh, what's your name?" And he's like, "Oh, Terra." He's like, it's kind of earthy." It's like this guy.
Also, it's kind of cool how they each relate to each other, like between the trios. How um, Terra passed down his Keyblade onto Riku, which, by the way, that's another thing that this game introduced: Keyblade inheritance, because that's a thing. Who knew?
Apparently.
Um, Ventus accidentally did it because he went to go sleep in Sora's heart, and Aqua also accidentally did it
Because
because
Kyrie just wanted to be a Keyblade wielder.
yes, but yeah, it's cool seeing the different parallels and distinctions between them.
Right. So, where were we at actually? Then the D links. So that's yeah, it's one of those things. It's kind of cool, kind of interesting. I like how like you can level it up by basically grinding out and getting like anytime you get one of the star drops, then you get like a higher level of whatever D link you have.
This entire game is just about leveling things up, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very grindy. It's kind of annoying in that sense. For me, like I'm not somebody who really likes to grind that much in games, unless like I want to. But more so I don't like to have to feel like I have to. Which this game definitely bodes itself to doing that, where it's like, oh well, if you want to do anything with the command deck, then you got to grind, and same thing with the D link, and so on and so forth. And it's like, ugh, like come on. But
yeah.
But overall, with this game and the combat, right? So I've mentioned the floaty combat, and this is the game that really introduced that idea. And then basically, if you don't know what I'm saying, it's basically just what it sounds like. It's a lot of the combat is, yeah, especially the air combat is the character. So normally in the previous games, and literally every single game before that, gravity worked normally, where if you were a Sora and you were jumping and attacking, right, as you're doing your finisher, you would still be falling towards the ground, right? Like you would only be still up in the air as you were attacking something, but once you stopped, you then went back towards the ground. Whereas in this game, you're kind of still suspended in the air for a while, so it makes for some really weird combat, especially too whenever like you can just essentially mash X and never touch the ground if you're fighting like an air enemy. And the main problem with it is more so just like it slows things down when a lot of times in the previous games it's all about speed, right? Like KH2 especially is one where the combat is as fast as ever, and then this one it just feels like a lot of it is I don't know, it's not snappy.
That sounds exactly like something a speedrunner would say.
Man, shut up.
It's all about speed.
But you know what I mean, bro. Like it's just not fun. Like
I remember at first I thought it kind of made sense because it's like, oh, fucking Vent is the size of a toothpick with a marshmallow on it, so you know he's floaty. Aqua's magic person, so floaty. Terra, I don't fucking know. I got nothing for him. But you know what I mean? Oh, you know what I
once
just
thought of it that way.
You know what I just remembered? Two things. Number one, Terra has one of my favorite shot locks because he gets the ultimate cannon.
Yes.
Number two, this is also the first time that we see these guys turn their keyblades into vehicles.
Yeah.
And the first time we see something that isn't a gummy ship traverse the I forget what it's called. Is it called the lanes between?
Oh, I don't know. But I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I do gotta say, since you mentioned that, good on Birth by Sleep. They got it right. Get rid of gummies. We don't need them. Just say they got there through Donald's magic. I don't care. We don't need them. Although KH3's gummy is actually pretty entertaining for me, but even then, like, I like the fact that they just cut to the chase. They didn't like make some like BS like, oh well, like we're gonna be doing like their surfing gummy or whatever. There's that one moment with Stitch's World or whatever where you have to like, you're technically in space as you're on the Keyblade, but
yeah,
that was like a one-time thing. Yeah.
But yeah, that was another cool thing, that the fact that the armor actually served a purpose other than to just look cool.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's one of those things that I think that it worked out for them, and especially like I think that obviously they're not gonna really have them on their own gummy ships and stuff, because then that would just be really weird. Bizarre. Yeah. Especially too, then Ventus probably would, knowing the way the story is, Ventus probably wouldn't have his own gummy ship, and then he would be doing literally nothing.
Sidecar on.
Or like whatever the tricycle version of a gummy ship would be.
Oh my god. But, yeah. There was a lot of cool things that they introduced in this one. Cool
Yeah.
things I would have loved to see in 3 whenever that came out back then.
Yeah.
Like, I remember thinking, oh, does this mean that Sora's gonna get, like, is he gonna turn his Keyblade into a spaceship now? How's that gonna work? Does Riku's turn into something? This is amazing.
Yeah.
Are they gonna get armor? I remember seeing the really old fan art of like Sora, Riku, and Kairi in their armor on like the fake Kingdom Hearts 3 box art.
Yeah.
The Wii.
Oh my god.
God, fan art was wonderful. Fan art is just a wonderful thing.
I still think fan art is how they made the X Blade. Like
I wouldn't doubt it for a second, but there is one thing that we have to mention before we're done talking about Birth by Sleep.
I'm waiting.
You know,
I'm waiting.
I don't want to talk about it, but we have to mention it because
Just mention it.
Mario Party.
I knew it. Okay. Well, thank you guys. Good night. It was one.
I'm out. That's it.
Oh man. Good old Mario Party and Kingdom Cart.
Why is it in arts?
I don't know, man. That's to me like one of the biggest showings of like it just being on the PSP, and they were like, well, we got to make it like some like portable, like fun, like little mini games or whatever, right?
Yeah. It's like,
although to be honest, like Kingdom Hearts tends to have in general like these like dumb mini games, right?
like the ice cream.
Like what?
The ice cream.
Yes, that is. Yes. Yeah, the ice cream.
The ice cream.
The ice cream. But yeah,
Like
like in general, they always have dumb stuff. Even like H3 with the
cooking.
yeah, the cooking and the whatever the video game thing was. And like even KH1 and 2 in general with 100 Acre Woods. Although that's a lot more engaging overall, because at least there's a story behind that stuff. But for the most part, the actual mini games I don't really care as much for.
I'm gonna say this though, with Birth by Sleep, at least they tried to put in some multiplayer things.
Yeah.
Like with Mario Kart, I can't even remember what it was called, so I'm just gonna call it
by its name. It's Kingdom Cart.
Was it called Kingdom Cart?
No.
Okay, thank God.
That's just what the what everybody knows it as.
Kingdom Cart, fucking. It served no purpose other than to just have fun with your friends. If you could convince them to play it with you,
convince them to get a PSP and to buy this game and to play it.
And with the Mario Party, which I think that was actually called a command board, it did serve a purpose to help speed up the leveling of your command deck.
Yeah.
And that's how I cheesed through leveling up some of those things. But the fact that it can do that, and it made me feel like I had to do that, else spend like 20 hours grinding, is just no.
Yeah.
No.
I think one thing that they did do right though was the Mirage Arena, right?
The Mirage Arena that doesn't multiplayer anymore.
Yeah, which I mean, it's not gonna happen. Excuse me.
Tragedy. But go on.
Oh man, sorry, got something in my throat. But
Yes.
yeah, like the Mirage Arena was fun. Like it was basically another form of the Olympus Coliseum, like kind of tournament. And I'm always a fan of that, like any kind of like combat tournament system that they'll have. And it was like, to me, that was my way of leveling up all the characters and all their command decks.
I love the fact that it had like its own unique boss in it. The I forget what it was called, the cage something.
Yeah.
Something.
Yeah, and then every single like level that you would do or whatever, or like mini, I guess, tournament, it was a different form of that. Like you would get more and more aggressive as you went on.
God, I never beat his final form. You know.
Hmm.
That
I don't
thing. Did
remember if I
you?
did. I think I might have, but like I think I did it with like Terra. Terra was the one I think I leveled up the most out of
Yeah,
everyone.
I too did it with Terra, but that's because I just love beating the shit out of things with my keyboard. I'm a simple man,
Yeah, I feel that.
but I wish that they would have kept that multiplayer when they made the remake of it
Yeah,
or the remastered of it, because that would have been fun.
yeah.
That
I feel
like
like
oh
that's just a small little thing that they could have as like an incentive for people to get it, right?
mhm,
Because there's still
mhm.
like a lot of the people that would buy all the remakes and stuff are the most hardcore fans. So I'm sure that you're gonna find tons of people who would um would love to do that again, basically.
And hell, to do it with your friends, like
What a concept.
what? I know, right? Playing video games with your friends. Completely foreign It's a new concept, revolutionary. Never seen anything like it.
We'll do a presentation to tomorrow for you
Yeah,
guys, for the fans.
for the fans. Yeah, we'll tell them about split screen.
Oh
God,
man.
that's in a Kingdom Hearts game. But yeah, it was. They weren't the best things, but I appreciate the attempt to have some kind of multiplayer aspect there.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's a good, maybe not a good, yeah, I was gonna say it's like a good start, but not really. It's just like it's a nice little addition to have, right? Like
Yeah.
just an extra, right? And I feel like that's just what they were trying to do with all the mini games they were doing with like the Mario Party and the Kingdom Cart and all that stuff. It was just giving you more options of how you could spend your time with the game, basically.
Yeah. And then, there is a golden rule that anything is fun when you're playing with friends.
Exactly.
I've played Fallout 76, so I would know.
So I think that's a good place to wrap it up before this goes into a conversation about gogurt again. So
Who measures things in yogurt packages? That's all I'm saying.
so time for plugs. So if you're watching on Twitch, or if you don't know, we stream this live on Twitch. We try to do once a week. Normally on sometime of the weekend. Sometimes like this weekend was a bit busy, so we did it today on Monday. But you can find us there at the Hansem Reports, or find us on YouTube at the Hansem Reports as well. Follow us on Twitter, the Hansem Report. And also, if you are a big fan of Kingdom Hearts and you want to see the best game played as fast as possible, then you can watch me speedrun KH2 at Crazy Kazi on Twitch. So yeah, definitely appreciate you guys listening. If you've made it this far, definitely hit that subscribe and watch any of our other videos. Next week we're going to be doing Recoded, right?
Yeah, Recoded.
Very good. So we'll be doing Recoded, and then it'll only be one more video until our magnum opus, and then we'll be done with
Is our magnum opus stream drop, or is it 3?
stream drop.
Okay,
So
good.
so thank you again, guys. Leave a comment. Tell us which one of your games is your favorite. What do you like about Birth by Sleep? Just
Or
anything,
tell us
or even,
great.
yeah. Or tell us what you'd like to measure in Gogurt. How about that? Screw any of that other stuff. Forget I said anything. If you tell us what you want to measure in Gogurt, then I'm gonna give you, we will give you that heart, and we will start a conversation with you.
I'm going to find that article. I'm going to send it to you.
All right. So I've been crazy, and Bernie, say goodbye to the people.
Happy Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day, everybody. See you next time.
Bye.